Welcome, my guest. Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 stories about witches. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of more context about witches here in Latin America. The Spanish for witch is bruja, and I think one of the closer depictions to a bruja is the movie The Witch with Anya Taylor-Joy. You know that they drink the blood of children, eat them, use them in several rituals, but one of the things that separates a traditional witch from a bruja is that a bruja can turn into a fireball that can jump and sometimes fly. It is said that they are common in rural areas, small mountains, hills, that type of terrain. One of the most common traits of a witch or bruja is that they have the ability to transform into a very horrific type of bird. Something that looks like a buzzard or a turkey, but with also human features, like all that ugly face of those birds also mixed with some human traits in the face. It's quite bizarre to be honest. But yeah, I think that's all the context for now. Let's go to the nightmares. When I was in elementary school, my uncle decided to take me into a trip to Acapulco. It was one of those long weekends in Mexico, the last Friday of the month. In schools, teachers and directors had meetings, so kids didn't have to go. So we left on Tuesday evening. My uncle was driving, and my aunt, who was pregnant at the time, sat in the front seat. Because of the traffic, by the time I left the city, night had already fallen. We planned to stop for gas after passing a small town called Alpuyeca. But when we got there, the gas station was closed, completely shut down. That's when things started to feel off. I remember I was just a kid, playing Snake on one of those old screen Nokias. The battery usually lasted forever, but that night, it started to die fast. Out there in the dark, there were barely any other cars on the road, just us, surrounded by mountains and silence. Then, out of nowhere, 2 balls of fire appeared beside us. They came flying out the dark, one of each side of the road, bouncing and flickering, keeping up with the car, almost playfully. Sometimes they speed up a little bit and cross in front of us, switching sides. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. I could tell my uncle was nervous. He kept checking the fuel gauge, muttering that we're almost out of gas. My aunt started taking notes on the kilometer marks, so they could call Los Angeles Verdes, a roadside assistance service. And then we saw something, or someone, walking along the road. As we passed by, the figure looked enormous, way taller than our car. My uncle didn't say a word. He just kept driving, gripping the wheel tighter. Eventually, we came across a few men selling gasoline out of plastic containers on the side of the road. My uncle stopped, but enough to make it to Chilpancingo. Nothing else happened after that. We got to Acapulco safely. But later, when we talked about it, they told me that those glowing fireballs had been witches, or brujas, following us that night. Hi, my name is Irma. I want to share the time I saw what I truly believe was a witch. This happened many years ago, sometimes in the late 70s, in Mexico City. Back then, I was in middle school. From the small patio in the house, you could see part of the street outside. On the left side of that street, there was a tall wall that separated our neighbor from the next one. Along that road stood several trees, and one of them, in right view from our patio, was a pirul tree. One night, my mother called us for dinner. As I passed through the patio, I happened to glance toward the pirul tree, and what I saw froze me in place. Perched on top of the tree, there was something that looked like a massive turkey. But there was something horribly wrong about it. Its face wasn't quite like that of a bird. It had strange, almost human features, and small fleshly crests on his head, like a rooster. When it noticed me looking, it seemed to smile. Not a friendly smile, but one full of malice, as if it was mocking me. Its face started to change, the features becoming disturbingly human. I swear it even raised its eyebrows in a taunting way. I was completely paralyzed. My body wouldn't respond. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even move. Tears just started rolling down my cheeks as I stood there, locked in that stare. The only thing I could feel was pure and absolute evil coming from that thing. Then suddenly, it jumped straight from the pirul onto the wall and then over to the next neighborhood. The moment it disappeared, my body finally loosened up. I broke down crying, loud, uncontrollable sobs, which caught the attention of my older sisters. They ran to me, terrified, and called my mom. When I told her what I seen, she looked at me seriously and said, "That was a bruja, a witch." I don't think the encounter lasted more than a few seconds, but for me, it felt like an eternity. This next nightmare is brought to us by Julio. One time, I went on vacation with my wife and 4-year-old son. At that time, my wife was pregnant with her second child. We decided to rent some cabins not too far from where we live, because people say the area was full of legends and ghost stories, the kind of things we really enjoy. We arrived in the morning, everything went smoothly, and the first day was completely normal. That night we went to a Night of Legends in a nearby town, basically a guided tour where they told us the local horror stories and the exact spot where they supposedly happened. It was fascinating and we had a great time. But when we got back to the cabin, we were way more exhausted than expected. We just blamed it all on the walking. The next day went by normally too, but when the night came, that strange tiredness returned, and this time it came with a deep sense of unease. It's hard to explain, something in the air just felt wrong. My wife noticed and asked if I was okay. I told her it was nothing, that I just remembered some work stuff, but honestly I didn't want to worry her. As the night went on, that feeling grew stronger. Despite being tired, I decided to stay awake for a while, just to make sure everything was fine. I was dozing off in a chair when I suddenly heard a loud thump above me on the roof. It startled me instantly. I rushed upstairs to check the bedrooms. My wife and son were sound asleep, so I calmed down a little. But then I started hearing something strange. It sounding like a spinning top made of metal, spinning insanely fast right above the ceiling, moving from one side of the roof to another. It wasn't steady, it shifted, almost like something was walking or crawling up there, until finally the sound stopped right above the room where my wife and son were sleeping. I tried to wake my wife quietly at first, but she wouldn't respond. She was breathing normally, deeply asleep. I couldn't wake her, so I spoke louder. The moment I raised my voice, the noise stopped. Then it came a screeching sound, followed by a heavy thud, like something had just fallen outside the cabin. I went to the window and I saw a large shape, bigger than a person. It looked like it had jumped off the roof. It was too dark to see clearly. I turned my head for a second. When I looked back, it was gone. I couldn't help thinking about the legends we'd heard that night before. Stories about witches who came to steal children. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself there were just stories, meant to entertain tourists, but deep down, I was nervous. I lay down next to my wife and son, trying to sleep, when suddenly another loud bang echoed on the roof. Then came footsteps, running back and forth, and the metallic spinning sound again, right above us. I jumped out of the bed, grabbed a wooden stick, and started hitting the ceiling where the sound came from. As soon as I hit, the sound stopped, but only for a moment. I heard it move a bit, and then return. This time, while keeping making that awful sound, I started yelling at it, even cursing. Then, I heard it jump off the roof again. I ran through the windows and held up a crucifix that my wife had brought, showing it toward the dark outside. And then, that's when I heard it. A laugh. A loud, sharp, inhuman laugh. It was so strong, it sounded like it came through speakers. I can't describe how terrifying it was. Even remembering that sound gives me chills. Suddenly, that thing jumped back onto the roof, landing directly above us. The laughter got louder, higher, turning into almost a scream. It started jumping and stomping with such force that the whole roof shook. Each impact felt like it pushed down the air inside the room. It went on for what felt like minutes, the longest minutes of my life. Then it finally jumped again, this time landing on the far side of the cabin. The laughter started to fade, slowly, until it vanished into the distance. Even then, I didn't dare to sleep. I sat on a chair guarding my family, fighting to stay awake until the sun came up. I must have fallen asleep around 6 in the morning. At 9, my wife woke me up, asking why I was in the chair. I just told her that I explain later, and asked her to make a strong coffee, and told her that we are leaving. My son complaining about leaving, but after seeing my face, my wife handled it. We packed it up and got in the car and drove home that same day. And to this day, I still don't know what it was that visited us that night. Could it be a bruja? A witch? Very interesting story, very scary, like the man fearing for his wife and kid, and unborn kid. Let me know in the comments, what do you think it was? Thank you Irma, thank you Julio, and thank you, my guest, for staying and listening to these stories. Remember that I am Wally, the host of your nightmares. Have a spooky night.